There's been a story that I've seen told 2 or 3 times, and having to do with the juxtaposition between what several very prominent Republicans have said out loud about Donald Trump, and recently, not like Lindsey Graham about the kook that Trump was, he said in 2015 or 16. No, this is fairly recent stuff. And 3 Republicans, probably most prominently Mitch McConnell, Moscow Mitch McConnell, and also former Attorney General Bill Barr, and finally the third of the trio is Sununu, the governor of New Hampshire. All of them, you could present videos, which people have done, saying basically that Trump is a threat to the nation in various language and ways, and really unsuited to be elected president. And then in the past week, all 3 of them have announced that they are going to support Donald Trump for president. I find that very disturbing. And more than a little bit puzzling, particularly in the case of Mitch McConnell, who obviously doesn't have to be computing what the effect this will have on his political future. He's on his way out. Bill Barr, I don't remember exactly what his age is, but he must be in his early 70s now. He's not going to get any in a Trump world. He's got no personal selfish stake. And I'll leave Sununu off the picture because he's not at least not yet, a national figure. It disturbs me partly because what we really need is for all those who see what's what to talk, especially on the Republican side we're talking about here, to tell the people with whom they have some credibility as fellow Republicans that this is not a candidate that a Republican should support, that he is a threat to the American democracy, to the constitutional system order that we have been proud of for more than 2 centuries, and that the only responsible thing is to withhold support from this Republican nominee, and then ultimately to combine that with, and therefore also to vote for Joe Biden. That's a separate thing for now. I agreed recently in a video I did about Stuart Stevens, the never Trumper, who says that if he were asked for advice, he would say, yeah, you got to tell him to vote for Joe Biden, but wait to do that. And he's talked about the time of the Democratic National Convention. That's important. Saving American democracy is more than important. It is essential. Let me see if I can get this picture a little bigger. There it goes. So anyway, that's why I'm disturbed, because these are people who've been public about seeing what they've seen. They see what every American patriot should regard as decisive about who to vote for in the coming election. And the stakes, of course, could not be higher when you're talking about the choice between democracy and fascism. So I think that this is such a major betrayal on the part of these 3 guys that it should not be allowed to pass and pass into the past. There's a way in which I'd like to see somebody call them on it. And that's where I come to my fantasy that I had in the last half hour before this conversation here on the video began. I'm imagining myself to be one of the Democratic senators. I wouldn't even mind if it was a Republican senator. Even Mitt Romney it doesn't rise to the heroic level that I would hope that I would if I was in his position. But anyway, I'm thinking in the Senate, I think about Elizabeth Warren, who is articulate and fully qualified to call them out on this particular betrayal, because she's been major figure in the Harvard Law School, and this has got to do with there's a lot here that is about the Constitution, and which leads me also to a second senator. I could imagine doing it, though I don't think he's got quite the combative chops I'd like to see in this arena that I'm going to be laying out what I'd like them to do. But Sheldon Whitehouse from Rhode Island, he's the guy who more than anybody else in the Senate is taking on the corruption of the Supreme Court and all the forces behind him that have executed this program of corruption. So he's quite qualified too. And it doesn't have to be a senator. It could be one of our finer members of the House of Representatives, like Jamie Raskin and Adam Schiff, the two people who were in charge of the two Trump impeachments. And Jamie Raskin is a constitutional scholar, and he is already a major voice in defense of the Constitution against this lawless, fascistic force that's arising, that these guys are saying they're going to stick with. So if I were one of these people, I would issue a challenge to one or both or either, probably better to pick one, and probably better to pick McConnell. But Bill Barr would be another possibility. I mean, he was Attorney General, and for a constitutional thinker like, say, Jamie Raskin to challenge a former Attorney General is sort of like mixing the two of the same, and challenging one of these guys to justify what they're doing, or to put it in more accusatory terms, to say that they are betraying the oath of office they took. Now, Mitch McConnell is still under an oath of office, and I don't know whether when, say, Bill Barr took an oath of office, which he betrayed pretty utterly, pretty much right away when he became Attorney General, but that's another story. I don't know whether Bill Barr is still bound by the oath he took. The wording of these oaths to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States against, in some cases against enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't know if that is perennial. Once you've taken it, you are still always obliged. I just don't know. Certainly while you're in office, you do. So that might be a reason to, if you wanted to make use of this oath thing. And I think that the oath thing should get a lot more airtime than it does. It might make more sense to go after Mitch McConnell, because for sure he's a member of the United States Senate and he's still bound by the oath. And I would utilize all this to indicate various things. I'm not sure. I mean, I'll get to how I might word the challenge, but first of all, that Donald Trump is a threat to the constitutional order. That can readily be established, and it's an issue which has to be put front and center in as many ways as possible. So this could just be one of them. I mean, Biden is already talking about a threat to American democracy and stuff like that, and that's all well and good. But we need to get it out there. Getting through to the American public when you see some of these polls about what they don't know, how many people believe that the election was stolen. Huh. I mean, how do you get through something like that? But there are other things. Some of those people may be in some kind of a right-wing trance. They can't see what's in front of their eyes. But there are a lot of people who believe a lot of other things that are false, and so it really does seem as though it's important to hammer the most fundamental truth about this upcoming presidential election, which is this is about saving American democracy from being overthrown by a force of fascism. So I would say, Senator McConnell, I challenge you to debate. And then I'm not sure exactly how, what the proposition would be, or j'accuse, I accuse you of betraying your oath of office, and then maybe go into why that oath is really something to be taken with utter seriousness. First of all, to look at how our founders put that into the Constitution, to protect the Constitution. It wasn't about, the stuff in the preamble, to provide for the general welfare and the national defense. That's all well and good. But the important thing that they thought essential to have people swear an oath. Now, the oath has a long history, and it is connected with the deepest commitments. These are not casual commitments. When you take an oath, fealty to the king, or all the stuff that goes back in history, taking an oath was an unbreakable promise. And here's Mitch McConnell or Bill Barr breaking that unbreakable promise. Talk about what a lack of integrity is implied by the failure to take that oath seriously. Now, people have criticized, in these reports that I've seen, putting party above nation is bigger than that. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can put party above nation, and people in political parties have done a lot of it over the generations. But he's putting something above the preservation of American democracy, above honoring his oath of office. And then to talk about what is it that you're protecting when you protect the Constitution. It's got to be brought down to the level of so that people can see that there are sacred things involved here. You look at the Bill of Rights, for example, and you see they're trying to create a world which contrasts with the extreme ugliness of the world where there isn't something like the Constitution and the rule of law. A world in which there is enslavement, domination, exploitation, dungeons and instruments of torture, arbitrary power, complete lack of regard for the common good because the top-down power is able to use all the instruments of power to get what it wants for itself, regardless of the cost to everyone else. And that is the opposite of the human good. And that's what fascist regimes do. That's what emperors in the ancient civilizations often largely did. That's what Trump represents, and he's presenting it ever more vividly. I gather that I haven't read the interview with Time magazine, but people are saying that it sounds a lot like Mein Kampf. This is what he'll do in the term if he wins the election. I mean, we're talking about ugly things here. And we're just condemned at this moment in our history to have to be the heroes that we need. We need to step up here because we're coming to a showdown in this election. And there are a variety of other showdowns in various courts, but the place where we got to be focused, in a sense, in terms of the most significant outcome issue, is who's going to be inaugurated president next January. It's got to be Joe Biden.